Here's to whiskey kisses, the peachy taste of sin.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Now, it's whiskey time. Greetings, whiskey folk, and welcome back once again to Drinking Out Loud. I am your host, Adam Bradshaw, and we are here on the official Dram Association YouTube channel for yet another Scotch Malt Whisky Society OutTurn. We are finally at February 2021, and we have a stunning selection of whiskies for you today as part of the 112th SMWS Canada releases. Oh, it's quite the doozy, but before we get to the new releases, I'm going to bring out a repeat, and this is something we haven't seen for a couple of years here. This is something we managed to find in the in somewhere hidden in the back of the liquor distribution branch warehouse. They found another case of an old favourite, Jousting with Flowers. So I'm going to crack this guy open and give it a bit of a sample, whilst I let you know how best to take part in today's tasting. So, first of all, if you're watching it live, and that would be on the first Friday at 6:30 p.m. If you're watching this during the premiere, please do take part in the live chat. You'll find it right below or to the top. Yeah, that way? That way. Just up there or down there, depending on what device you're on. If you're on a smart TV, I'm afraid you won't be able to see it most likely, but if you are on a laptop or a phone or some kind of device with a keyboard capability, then please do join in with the live chat. If you are watching this later on, please drop us a comment in the comments section. I'll try and get back to you. Our comments are always thoroughly appreciated. We love hearing from you guys. And yeah, a special shout out to all of our members across BC, especially those who are joining us who are normally customers of Legacy. It's great to see you guys. Please do support your local SMWS outlet if you can. And of course our members in Alberta who are customers of Kensington Wine Market and the Keg and Cork store up in Edmonton. But of course, we actually do have SMWS members across the country. It's not just in the two provinces where you can purchase the whiskies. So an extra special welcome to anyone who's joining us from Quebec or Ontario or the Maritimes or anywhere else. I'm sure we probably have some in Manitoba, maybe even Saskatchewan. So yeah, give us a shout if you're in one of the non-SMWS provinces, but you are an SMWS member. Perhaps you have family here who help you get some of the whiskey to your lips. Who knows how it gets there? But a special welcome to all SMWS members across Canada, or even around the world if you happen to be watching from elsewhere. I know we've got a frequent watcher from Germany now. So hi, if you're watching, it's good to see you again. Or I guess I can't see you. It's good that you can see me again, I guess, as weird as that sounds. Anyway, let's crack open Jousting with Flowers. So please do join in with the live chat. And if you are planning on trying to purchase some of these new releases, because that's what this video is all about, it's all about the brand new releases, or long lost repeats, then make sure that you're already logged into our store. So go to strathliquor.com. You'll find a heading in the menu there called My Account. Just log into your account if you've already got one. Then go to strathliquor.com/SMWS. And anytime I say a whiskey is now available, hit that refresh button and it should magically appear. If you're watching in the live chat, you'll also find links that I will put there in the live chat, because it's not actually live. I'm recording this a couple of days in advance, so I can actually type along in the live chat and say hi. So yeah, I'm probably saying hi right now. Hi everyone, and also hi from me in the live chat. Today I'm using the wee Glencairns because, truth be told, I've got a lot of work to do today, so I can't afford to get inebriated. So this is my effort to make sure I have a sane amount of whiskey in my glass, because I don't like whiskey going to waste. So hopefully by now you're all logged in and ready. Let's get talking about the whiskey, shall we? So we have the official Scotch Malt Whisky Society write-up for this whiskey here. They say, armed with huge floral bouquets, the two jousting horsemen faced each other and raised their caramel wafer shields. With a kick of their heels, they charged. The tremendous impact launched buds of roses, hyacinths and carnations into the air, giving rise to a sweet scent that mixed with the soft leather of the harnesses. A gust of wind blew the surrounding conifer and eucalyptus trees, blending a fresh citrus and peppermint breeze with the smell of woodsap. The falling petals cleared to reveal the two jousters as they stood to their feet, clutching their battered flower stems, taking a tea break of champions as they enjoyed marmalade on rye, bread toast. Oh, on rye bread toast, okay. I was like, what's bread toast? Surely it's just toast. Creme brulee and vanilla ice cream with caramel sauce. Lovely. So, like I said, this is an older release. This is something that we pulled out of the archives. And my lasting memory of this whiskey, the thing I really remember about it from last time we had it, was that it showed that delicate flavours don't have to be delicate. And if that makes any sense at all, things that you often think of as a delicate note that usually come in a softer side in their natural setting, like flowers, for example. Not that I remember finding this actually particularly floral, interestingly enough, but softer notes, especially when they're in whiskey, can be presented quite loudly. And let's see if that's the case again here today. So straight off the bat, I'm getting something I don't think was mentioned at all in the notes. I'm getting pear. It's quite interesting. Yeah, I'm getting quite a bit of pear actually, and pear and caramel. I'm definitely getting the caramel sauce it mentions. Very, very pleasant. That's the wonderful thing about the wee Glencairns, is they're small glass, but they retain that same Glencairn shape and funnel up the flavours into the nose just as much as a Glencairn does. So you really can get a full effect of a whiskey whilst only pouring a small amount. Definitely recommend these guys if you feel like picking some up. We actually have some in stock right now at the Strath. We've got the plain ones that I'm using. We also have the Dram Association ones right here as well. They're not up on the website quite yet, but maybe if I remember to put them up in time for the video, maybe I'll be able to pick some up too. But yeah, very, very good for when you know you're going to be having a whole suite of whiskies in one evening. Getting a little bit of peppermint and pepper, interestingly. Not a combination I'd usually combine, despite their names being, peppermint has the word pepper in it. I've never really questioned that before. Peppermint isn't really peppery. I wonder why it's named that. Maybe it grows like pepper? No, I have no idea. Smells divine though. Yeah, it is quite punchy actually. It's beautiful. There's a lot going on there. Yeah, I see why they're coming with the rye bread. I'm not sure I'm getting necessarily rye, but I'm getting like a deeper maltiness, almost like a Sorin's malt loaf for anyone who grew up in Britain and remembers that weird squidgy dessert bread. Okay, so let's talk about what this is, shall we? And have a little bit of a run through of the information that the SMWS gives us on the bottle. So Jousting with Flowers is its official name. Kind of. It's kind of more of a nickname. The official name, really, of this whiskey, though, is 41.95, and that is the code that the SMWS gives every single bottle that they release. The number before the period is denotes the distillery, and they go in order of bottling. So this is the 41st distillery that the SMWS bought a cask from, and this is the 95th cask that they purchased from that distillery. Pretty cool. Pretty cool how you can keep track of all that. It also then says the amount of bottles that came out of that cask, in this case 226. It will tell you the exact date that it was distilled, the 23rd of March 2006 in this case, the type of cask, refill barrel ex-bourbon, the region, Speyside, and the ABV, 56.2 in this case, and 11 years aged, which is of course different to 11 years old, and it's one of the mistakes I make most of all when talking about whiskey is referring to something as a year old. Because it especially with single cask, it's a bit of a trap, because it's not actually 11 years old. It was distilled in 2006, but it was aged for 11 years, because as soon as it gets in the bottle, the aging stops. It's all about age in a cask. So yeah, a wonderful amount of information. The one piece that the SMWS does not give us in terms of information is the name of the distillery. And that is something that is a strongly kept secret that even the wisest minds have yet to figure out. No, you can Google it. The SMWS, I don't know what their official stance is on letting slip what the distilleries are. I do it all the time. But I feel like the biggest reason for the number coding is so that you don't have a preconceived notion of what the whiskey's going to be like before you taste it. After you've tried it, after you know a little bit about it, by all means, find out where it's from. So if you don't want to know where this is from, if you're thinking about picking up a bottle, just cover your eyes and your ears for a couple of minutes, or skip forward on the video if you're watching it back, not live, because I'm about to tell you that this is a Dalhousie. And Dalhousi's a really interesting distillery. One of many, many Speyside distilleries that popped up in the 1800s. It's actually started in 1851, but by the late 1800s, Dalhousie was actually the biggest distillery in Speyside, which is really kind of cool. It's rarely released as a single malt and is mostly used by blending houses as an addition of a little bit more of a meaty flavour, a little bit of a bolder whiskey to put into blends. Bulks it out a little bit. Alright, let's try it with a little touch of water here. So, who would I recommend this whiskey to? This is something I'm going to try and remember to do more on these videos, because I know it's relatively hard to figure out if you're going to like a whiskey based on my own ramblings, but maybe if this speaks to you, maybe this is the kind of whiskey you might enjoy. I think that this is, weirdly enough, the next step up from a lot of the single malt Irish whiskies that are coming out these days. And I know that sounds bizarre, but a lot of those orchard fruit, the apple and pear notes that I'm getting, and even the floral notes, are quite common in those style of whiskies recently. And this is, if you like Irish whiskey but you feel it's a little bit lacking, if you feel like it needs more volume, just needs to be a little louder, that's what this is. The ABV is, it's big, it's up there, it's 56.2. It's a perfectly cromulent ABV. And yeah, but it doesn't have any real burn to it as such. It's a well-crafted single malt whiskey with 11 years under its belt. But yeah, if you're looking for something with that similar kind of flavor profile, perhaps you're a Bushmills fan and you want something that's Bushmills turned up a bit, I think that's kind of where I would place this. I, for one, very much enjoy it. And if you disagree with that, by all means, please do get in touch and say what kind of whiskies you think people would enjoy that are like this in the comments. If you pick up a bottle of this and you want to recommend it to someone in the comments below, please, by all means, do so and let them know your opinions of this whiskey. I'd love to hear from you guys. Someone's playing music in the alleyway next to me. Can't quite tell what it is. I wonder if the video is picking it up. Anyway, the delights of being in downtown Victoria. So, it's time for the first actual brand new release. Let's place this over here. Time for the first new release of February 2021. And we're starting off with something I thoroughly enjoy the name of this one because it references my all-time favorite vegetable, mussel sprouts. And here are the official tasting notes. A muscular and typically forthright expression of this underrated space cider. So we're still in space side. Sweet waxes, dry flowers, putty, lanolin, sunflower oil, and gorse flowers were all initially noted. Additionally, there's some salty, young pheno sherry. Interesting. Flint smoke, damp shed earth, and chamois, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that, leather. Water revealed pine cones, air freshener, potting sheds, chopped chives, freshly turned earth, soot, and ham boiled in lactic stout beers. Never thought of boiling a ham in a beer. I've boiled many a ham in a cider. I should try that. Swiney. No, not swine. I was going to say swiney. That sounds sinewy. There we go. And charismatic stuff. Interesting. The palate was immediately boisterous and lively, with tea tree oil, vapor rubs, copper coins, vegetable bouillon stock, game meats, sheep wool, and aged mead. Water tamed things a little, but it was still full of chamomile vegetable notes, brown bread, autolyptic yeasty notes, herbal and floral scented waxiness, barber grease, witch hazel, and wine cellar must. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, mussel sprouts. Oh, and I should mention Jousting with Flowers, as it's a repeat, that's already on sale, and you can get it for $149.49. That's a good rinse with $149.49 for the Jousting with Flowers. It's up there. You should be able to see it already. Mussel sprouts. You're gonna have to wait until I say this is ready. This is not ready yet, so hold your horses. Mussel sprouts is Society cask number 44.129. It is an OutTurn of 206 bottles. And one thing I need to remember to do with the new livery, as you can see here, the new design, I found that the actual notes on the bottle are often very different to the full notes that I get here. So I'm going to try and remember to read the notes on the bottle as well. Powerful and muscular Speyside malt that displays deeply herbal and earthy tones, vaporous medical herbs, rich bready notes, and cereal sinew. Not much different in this case. It is 15 years aged, starting off with a nice 15-year-old. It is distilled on the 9th of June 2004. It is from a Refill X bourbon barrel, and the ABV is 55.6%. And this is from the spicy and dry flavor profile, which is one that we don't see every month. It's like one of the slightly rarer, I guess, flavor profiles here, but one that's quite popular. And let's see what mussel sprouts is all about. Lovely. I'm going to put that lid. Interesting. So the first thing I wanted to look for was the pheno sherry, because I'm always intrigued when you get sherry notes out of a bourbon cask. And yeah, I kind of do. I see where they're coming from. There is that slightly funky, because pheno is one of the sort of organic styles of sherry. It's not like it's not like Oloroso where it's had the brandy poured into it to kill off any of the floor. This is actually like a full floor, FLOR, like the yeast layer on top. Yeah, this has the floor. It's like the Speaker of the House. It has the floor. Yeah, this is cool. It's a little bit nutty. And it smells like a dry room. It smells like a dry room with a damp leather couch. As disgusting as that actually sounds in reality, it smells great. Yeah, it does have that little bit of a... Almost, they say sunflower oil. I'm almost getting like an olive oil, which is kind of cool. Like not quite an extra virgin, but you know, a slightly lighter olive oil. Little tinge of citrus, maybe orange or grapefruit. Lovely nose. Cool. Yeah, that is a lot more deep and interesting than I expected on the palate. Copper coins. I think it actually mentions copper coins. Yeah, copper coins. It tastes like... I can't remember ever doing this as an adult, so I'm guessing this memory is from being a toddler or something. I'm surprised. But I definitely have a taste recollection of what sucking on a 2p piece is like, which is very unhealthy, and I don't recommend anyone put any kind of currency in their mouth, you know, especially during a pandemic. But yeah, if that's something that you would like to do right now, but you fear for your safety, don't worry. You too can have the taste of pennies in your mouth. Asterisk, but in a good way. The whiskey asterisk applies there. Yeah, there is a medicinal, herbal kind of a note. Almost, hang on. Yeah, almost like imagine a cocktail where they've used Jägermeister not as an ingredient, but as a wash on the glass. You know, all those notes are there, but it's not overpowering at all. All right, let's see what water brings out on this. This is really cool. So, as I add a couple of drops of water, let's reveal where this is from. This is the second in a row of 1800s era Speyside distilleries. This is a Craigellachie, and although, yes, it also is from the 1800s, it's got a much more modern design than Dahluen, and that's partially because it's, you know, from the end of the 1800s, but also it's because they had their distillery was designed by renowned architect Charles Doig, who's one of the guys who actually sort of, I keep wanting to say invented the pagoda roof, but no, that was done in ancient China, I'm fairly sure. He invented the use of a pagoda roof at a distillery, which was pretty cool. These days, it's used almost entirely for the Dewar's blends, but it has also been released as a single malt now, which is wonderful. You don't have to go for an independent bottling to be able to try this, but honestly, the SMWS Craigellachie that we've had have blown the OBs out of the water. So if you do want the quintessential Craigellachie taste, this is the way to go. And if you've ever wondered what makes some of the fantastic Dewar's whiskies, such as they've won so many awards in the last year. I think they're the blender of the year in many awards categories. Their 27 and their 31-year-old blends have done amazing in the awards. If you've ever wondered what makes really good Dewar's really good, this is one of the key things. A lot of noise in the alley today. I chose a bad time to record, apparently. Lovely. Very nice indeed. So, the final piece of the puzzle. We know every piece of information about this whiskey apart from the price. So I'm here to tell you that right now, right this second, this is available at strathliquor.com/SMWS for $199.04. Under $200 for a 15-year-old whiskey. That's a fantastic deal these days. And yeah, this comes with my recommendation. It certainly does. A great start to the new whiskies. Let's see what's up next. Whiskey number 3 today, the second of the new releases, is Valentine's Day themed. I assume this one isn't Valentine's Day themed. Maybe, I don't know. It would be a cute nickname for someone if they're, you know, maybe a really short person who's very muscly. My little muscle sprout. How I adore you. No, it's probably not really Valentine's Day themed, but I know that Rob and Kelly do like to theme their releases a little bit around the holidays. We always get a couple of Valentine's Day sort of themed names in February. We always get a couple of spooky ones over in October. And this one is definitely in that Valentine's theme. This is A Date with a Tart. We found ourselves strolling through flower gardens surrounded by timber fencing and a vegetable patch that delivered wafts of fresh carrots. Flavors of dried dates, dark chocolate and ginger combined fruity and sweet notes with warming spice. Dried apricots and apples then formed into sweet tarts laced with vanilla as we sipped on black tea with sugar. Water only darkened the date as blackberries doused with coffee beans and licorice. Curious oily notes of Riesling wine sauntered along dried autumn leaves as seasoned oak surrounded black cherries and blackcurrant tarts. Finally, we found bananas, barley, and further spice on the finish. So as much as I almost got very excited about the word sauternes, which wasn't there, I am very excited about the words banana and barley, especially next to each other. Two of my favourite notes in a whiskey. Banana, relatively common from whiskies that use certain yeasts, and barley, as bizarre as it sounds, because all malt whiskey is made 100% with, barley as the only grain. I love it when you actually get that sort of malted barley flavour in a whiskey. That's not always there. So yeah, let's take a look at what we've got when we go for a date with a tart. Very cool. Let's move this guy out of the way. Not sure where to put it. Put that down here. So, this is Society Cask number 35.263, one of 207 bottles in existence. Strolling through flower gardens, we discovered dried dates, dark chocolates, and ginger with coffee beans, dried apricots, and blackcurrant tarts. Aged for 12 years. It was distilled on the 26th of November, 2007. It is a Speyside, and it is from a second fill ex-bourbon barrel, bottled at 58.8% ABV. That's the specs. Let's see how it stands up. I know a couple of eyebrows have been raised at the prospect of a number 12 from the SMWS. That's number 12. A 12-year-old from the SMWS. Let me get that right. A number 35 from the SMWS. I'll get there eventually. This is a distillery that we saw quite often in my early days here, through four-ish years ago. Partially because this distillery was actually, for a brief period, owned by the same company as the SMWS, so we got quite a lot of it. And it is an absolute fantastic distillery, which we just don't see here in BC, other than SMWS bottlings. So I know a lot of our local members have already pricked their ears up at the idea of a 35. And a 12-year-old 35 too. Lovely. So this is a sweet, fruity, and mellow whiskey. So the first thing I went looking for on the nose there, as I glanced over the nosing notes from the SMWS, is the carrots. As actually just last night, I got home and Kristen was actually cooking dinner. We get those little HelloFresh delivery boxes where you get all the fresh ingredients and you have a little instruction card and make your own dinner. So we do that 3 times a week. And she was weirdly ecstatic about how good a carrot was. And she basically forced me to have a piece of carrot as soon as I got home. And I have to say, it was a bloody amazing carrot. I don't know how it got so good, but carrot can be fantastic. And with that freshly in my mind, I was like, ooh, I wonder if I can find that carrot in here. And yeah, that sweet sort of earthiness. Oh yeah. I think I almost do. It might be the power of suggestion here, but... Yeah, dates. Ginger, definitely ginger. I'm not really getting the dark chocolate side of things that it mentions, but oh well. Wow. Now that's a memory. So, as a student, when I was trying my best to be as caffeinated as possible for an exam, I accidentally made a coffee-tea hybrid. Being a student, I had limited space and limited resources, so I used a teapot as a dual purpose. It was also my coffee pot. And I definitely accidentally put instant coffee, which I know instant coffee is god-awful, but it's the only coffee we really had when I was growing up. I accidentally put a couple of spoonfuls of instant coffee and a couple of tea bags into the pot. What resulted was a really weird, interesting flavour, which on its own was not very good, but with the addition of brown sugar, a cube, actually, I remember, a cube of brown sugar, was weirdly good. And that, yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Instant coffee is trash in general, and instant coffee should not be made better with the addition of a tea bag. But with the addition of brown sugar as well, weirdly good. And I'm getting that very specific memory on the palate here. Hey, imagine that whilst having some kind of apple Danish. Very good. So, I'm going to add some water and let you guys know where this is from. This is a Glenmoray, which is now the third 1800 Speyside in a row. And though this is technically both older and younger in a sense than the previous two whiskies, or distilleries rather, because it was whilst it was built in 1828, making it older than either of them, it was actually originally a brewery, not a distillery, and it didn't start making whiskey until 1897. Where it was a distillery for only 13 years. It then closed down in 1910 and reopened again, thankfully, 13 years again later in 1923. Bit of a rocky history for Glenmoray, but it turned out all right in the end because it's a fabulous distillery now, owned by La Martini Coissé, I believe, or La Martini Caisse, or something, La Martini French sound. And by all accounts, their official bottlings are pretty good, but I literally have never seen one in BC. So I don't think I've ever actually had an official bottling Glenmoray. So I don't know if the SMWS is better or worse than the OBs, but I can tell you I really, really, really like the SMWS Glenmorays. And I know they're quite popular with our hometown crew here in Victoria as well. So, did water do anything? Yeah, I think it tamed it a little bit, did make it a little bit sweeter. I don't know what's going on with me today. Everything tastes like low ABV, even though theoretically it should be high. There's a 58.8, doesn't, to me today at least, doesn't taste anywhere near that ABV, even before adding any water. Yeah. It mentions black cherries and blackcurrant tarts after water. There's the malt. That's the barley. Coming to me in the form of the middle of a Malteser. The best bit of a Malteser. Love chocolate, but let's face it, the Malteser is all about that malty bit in the middle. Not really finding much of a banana note. Maybe that's something I can look for on my alone time with this whiskey. But yeah, all around, very, very impressed with this one. It's a very, very nice Glenmoray. And this very nice Glenmoray we have available. We have 11 bottles available right now at strathliquor.com. It is live right now, strathliquor.com/SMWS for $167.74. Steal of a deal, $167.74. Yeah. Meaning that you do have to be a SMWS member to be able to purchase this. This is not available for prospective members who are interested in joining with the special offer that we have right now, where you can buy a bottle that's $180 or more and become a member for the first time. This is kind of a try before you buy thing. This one's not available to you. Sorry, members only. Date with the tart. That's a very good date. I was about to say I'd swipe right, but I honestly can't remember which way you swipe on Tinder. Whichever way you swipe to say yes, this is the swipey way. This is the good way. This is the way. All right. Let's see what's coming up next. I fear we're not leaving a theme here. We're sticking with the Valentine's Day theme because we're about to get fruity in the malt barn, because this one's called Getting Fruity in the Malt Barn. The official notes are as follows. Rainwater dripped from the malt barn roof, bringing a leafy freshness that mingled with nearby geraniums and green moss. Inside the barn, we were getting fruity with blood orange nectarines and waxy apple skins. The sweet seduction of vanilla and milk chocolate introduced a palate that immediately proposed maple syrup, toffee, and soft fudge. Then chopped almonds and hazelnuts frolicked with brioche bread among the toasty notes of sweet grains and malted barley. A drizzle of water released apple crumble and cinnamon, followed by coconut biscuits and lemon sweets. A lemon zing delivered citronella and grapefruit before vanilla sponge cake announced its arrival with glazed cherries and fine oaky tannins. Get a glass ready for this one. This one sounds delightful. And funnily enough, I accidentally referred to the last whiskey as a SMWS number 12. I was getting mixed up. It was 12 years old. It was number 35, which was also very exciting. This one is actually a 12. Kind of cool. So we are now trying 12.42, the 42nd edition from the 12th distillery. OutTurn of 221 bottles in this one. Getting fruity in the malt barn. Fruity frolics brought blood oranges, nectarines, and waxy apple skins on a bed of sweet grains and malted barley with soft fudge and hazelnuts. So that's kind of the short form notes there. This was aged for 10 years. It was distilled on the 29th of September 2009. Again, a space cider, and this one is from a first fill ex-bourbon barrel, so I'm expecting a little bit more of those vanillins coming in here. 58.9, very similar ABV to the last whiskey. 0.1 off, same flavor profile as well, sweet, fruity, and mellow. These would be an interesting couple to compare and contrast, actually. Yeah, only a couple of years different, same region, same flavor profile, very, very similar ABV. Yeah, same cask type in terms of bourbon barrel, although the date with the tart was a second fill, this is a first fill. Cool. Looking forward to this one. Lovely jubbly. So, it is weirdly barnyardy, not in like the classic weird, funky Glen Scotia-y barnyardy way, but in like a grain storage kind of way. Less in a manure-y way, more of a grain storage way. It is barny. Very nice. Getting quite a lot of vanilla. Almost a creaminess on the nose as well. It's kind of like a vanilla milkshake. Oh. So this is the malted part of a Malteser. This is an entire bag full of the malted parts of a Malteser. This is... Blimey, that's good. That is right up my alley. I usually find that flavor profile in the spicy and dry flavor profile. This being able to find that kind of malty flavor in something that's also quite a sweet as well. That's really, really quite good. I'd say a drop of water will add some apple crumble too. Always a fan of apple crumble. Takes me back to my primary school days when I'd always line up for the school lunches, or school dinners as we called them, because for some reason in Derbyshire and Yorkshire, dinner is lunch and... Wait, no, lunch is dinner and dinner is tea. Yeah, anyway. I would be stood there in the line with the fingers crossed hoping there's apple crumble at the dessert section. We get those weird little plastic trays where, you know, you've got like a semicircle for your main course and then a thing in the middle for your knife and fork and then a little cup holder and then a little tiny triangle for your desserts. Oh yeah. I'm hoping there is apple crumble, because if I can get apple crumble with that sort of creamy custardy flavour too. Interesting. I'm getting the crumble. I'm not getting the apple. Which, if I'm going to leave one part of an apple crumble out, it's going to be the apple. The crumble, let's face it, is the best bit. And if I could just have crumble with custard, I'd be a very happy kid. Also, if I only ate crumble with custard, I'd put on far too much weight. Thankfully, that is the beautiful thing about whiskey, is you can relive all these memories without packing on the pounds. If going to the gym is tricky right now with the COVID protocols where you are, and your New Year's resolution is already circling the drain, whiskey is your answer. Whiskey is the perfect weight loss tonic. Not in the sense that it's healthy, but it's a damn sight healthier than the other things that you might be having instead of it if you're looking for the same flavor profile. It's already been well established that don't take any any kind of medical advice from me after I once recommended sucking on a piece of coal. So yeah, don't actually believe that whiskey is a health tonic. It is in no way in no way am I trying to make that actual claim. I am not a doctor, and do not treat me as such. So yeah, very, very good whiskey. From Distillery 12, let's talk about Distillery 12. And it's an interesting one because in the last 38 years, I think now, that the SMWS has been around, it's actually only had 42 releases, despite being the 12th distillery that they visited, which is interesting. But it's actually a relatively sought-after distillery, especially these days. This is a Benriach. So that's now the fourth in a row of 1800s era Speyside distilleries, interestingly. It's actually, I was just mentioning how it would be a great thing to do a side-by-side with the Glenmorangie, and I think I should do that, actually. Because just like Glenmorangie, they actually started distilling in 1897, same year, which of course was a terrible time to start distilling, as with Glenmorangie going belly under after only 13 years. Belly up after only 13 years, rather. This one lasted an even shorter time and closed after just 2 years, which is unfortunate. It closed in I think it actually closed in the year 1900, but it hadn't actually reached its anniversary, maybe. But yeah, it was. It fell foul of a bit of a whiskey bust right there. The Patterson debacle. Thankfully, though, it did reopen, of course, as we're drinking some right now. Reopened in 1965. And it truly got a lot of resurgence after Billy Walker took over it as well. He's since left the company and has left it in the hands of the wonderful folks at Jack Daniels, interestingly enough. But yeah, great opportunity to try some cask strength 10-year-old Benriach. And this cask strength 10-year-old Benriach can be yours if you're quick on the draw. We have 11 bottles available right to this second at stratliquor.com/SMWS for $156.43. Beautiful. Again, only available to our current members under the 180 mark, $156.43. A lovely, lovely, lovely Benriach. Okay. We are officially leaving the 1800s Speyside trend that we've just had a little run of. We're going now into something quite different and interesting. We're not having a single malt. And don't get too worried, we're still in whiskey. Don't get too worried, that was a weird way of saying that. We've had some incredible non-whiskies from the SMWS. Nothing to worry about when the SMWS has a non-whiskey. But in this case, it is still a whiskey. We're going for a blended malt right now. And this is a blended malt called the Big Swirl. This experimental expression draws from a combination of whiskies matured full-term in first-fill Spanish oak sherry casks, as well as those matured in bourbon wood before over 2 years of marrying in a first-fill American oak sherry cask. A classical sherry profile that bursts initially with red berry compote, wine gums, freshly brewed coffee, polished hardwoods, exotic spice mix, toasted nuts, brown toast spread with treacle and walnut wine. A splash of water brings wet leaves, strawberry tobacco, muscovado sugar, rum agricole, sesame oil, black cumin seeds, lemon peel, toasted wood, rye bread, and bitter chocolate. In the mouth, it's a big swirl of dried, dark fruits, menthol, tobacco, strawberry wine, red licorice, damp earth, roasted chestnuts, milk chocolate, and fig rolls. Some reduction unleashes old herbal liqueurs, mulled plum wine, coffee, and walnut cake, cola, cherry syrup, and the lingering warmth of fruity red chili. That sounds very sherry. That there are a lot of the classical sherry whiskey notes that you get, and I am looking forward to cracking open the Big Swirl. Very cool. So yeah, this is actually age stated. It's 10 years old, and as with all of the, I think every single one of the blends so far from the SMWS, it is bottled at 50 ABV. The only time you'll see the Scotch Malt Whisky Society not bottling at cask strength, I'm pretty sure, is when it is a blended malt. And that's because they can actually design the whiskey to be, the perfect flavor ratio at whatever ABV they want to do it at. So if they're aiming for the perfect whiskey at 50 ABV, this was actually designed from the get-go with the idea that it's going to be bottled at 50 ABV. So it gives them like a more accurate, precise thing to aim for, which is cool. Very nice. Yeah, the info on the back of the bottle this time is actually exactly the same as what I just read from a quick glance. Let's give her a try, shall we? So yeah, initial casks, first fill Spanish oak sherry and bourbon, with a final cask of first fill American oak ex sherry. Very nice. Yep. Smells like sherry. Or rather, it smells like a sherry cask whiskey. Different things. Delightful, actually. That's very nice. Strawberry tobacco. It's something I've never had, but obviously I've had strawberries, I've had tobacco. I can kind of put two and two together. And yeah, this is kind of what I'd expect. There is a nose of what I would expect strawberry tobacco to come out like. And actually the strawberry flavor on it is very much a not 100% natural strawberry flavor. It's the kind of strawberry flavor you'd get in like a 1990s era kids strawberry milk kind of a thing. Or like a McDonald's strawberry milkshake. Imagine that. Having a McDonald's strawberry milkshake and a cigar at the same time, whilst also gorging yourself on raisins. That's what I'm getting right now. Yeah, that is very, very pleasing. I'm not 100% sold on the label, gotta be honest, but this is definitely the kind of whiskey that would find its way to my shelf. This is very good. I've been on the blended malt train quite a lot in the last couple of years, and I've been very impressed with everything the SMWS has put out, and this is no different. This is up to their usual standards. Yeah. Polished hardwood. The kind of chocolate that I'm used to tasting at the whiskey and chocolate pairing events that I used to do in the pre-COVID times. Actually, I'm sure Kai and John are probably watching. I miss those chocolate and whiskey events that you guys put together. And this is exactly the kind of chocolate that I would normally enjoy at those events that you put together. So hopefully you won't forget about them after everything goes back to normal, and we'll have another chocolate and whiskey pairing event. Because this, if I can manage to pull one of these aside, which I might not be able to, depending how popular it is today, this would be the perfect whiskey for one of those chocolate pairing events. I'm not going to bother adding water to this one. As I said, the SMWS had already designed this from the get-go to be perfect at 50% ABV, so who am I to say otherwise? I might do later on, but it's so damn good as it is. A little note on sherry casks, though. Very, very interestingly. I know there's a lot of people who are like, oh, American oak sherry cask, what are they doing? A sherry cask should be European oak. That is actually a fallacy. That is not true. And that's something I learnt from talking with our store manager, Megan, who's a big wine aficionado and enjoys sherry, has visited Jerez a couple of times. If you actually go to a bodega, sherry is actually matured in American oak. And it has been for a couple of 100 years now. It's not a new thing. American oak sherry is very, very, very normal. The thing is, there's a lot of talk these days about how we don't get real sherry casks anymore. We don't get casks that mature sherry in to use for our whiskey, and it's a real shame. It's not like it used to be. Okay, so sure, something did change in the 1980s, and it is a little bit different to how it used to be. But it's actually always been the case that Scotch malt whiskey has been matured in sherry conditioned casks, not sherry maturing casks. The bodegas never sold their maturing casks. Those are worth a lot of money. They would use them for upwards of 200 years. They basically use them until they fall apart and can't use them anymore. They're very, very useful in the production of sherry. The casks that are used to mature sherry were never used in the Scotch whisky industry. What casks were used? The transportation casks. Casks that were made out of cheap, locally available European oak. They didn't even use European oak, 200 years ago. They were using American oak basically as soon as they were able to, because it's such a better cask wood, basically, especially for sherries. European oak put too much flavour into it. So European oak was only ever used for transportation. So sometimes you'd have an ex-sherry cask that, depending on how long it took to get to the UK and how long it took them to bottle it in their giant bottling plants down in England, or how long it took for a private entity to drink it straight from the cask, you might have only had sherry in it for a couple of months. These days, sherry conditioned casks usually have it for around a year. So it's actually, if anything, more sherried than it used to be in the previous times. And the reason it changed in the 1980s is that a law was passed in Spain that meant that you could no longer export sherry in the cask. So you didn't get those transportation casks anymore. So the bodegas that were used to selling their casks off as an extra commodity started creating their own sherry seasoned casks. And it's been that way for 40 years now, pretty much. And so whenever you hear some Ponzi whiskey guy being all like, or girl, sorry, girls can be Ponzi too, going like, oh, yes, but sherry casks were better in our day, and you should try this 1973 Macallan because the sherry wood was so much better back then. Bollocks. Bollocks. It's just not true. Anyway, aside from that, let's talk about releasing the big swirl, shall we? I went on a bit of a wild tangent there. Big swirl, this 10-year-old blended malt, or vatted malt if you prefer the old term, is available right now. We have 11 bottles for sale at strathliquor.com/SMWS for $147.74. Steal. For a 10-year-old sherry matured whiskey, that is absolutely beautiful. Yeah. Thoroughly recommend this, and yeah, this is on my shopping list if it doesn't sell out automatically. Yeah. Let's see where we go from here. We go for something that I feel is going to be quite popular, and it seems that Rob and Kelly have felt it's quite popular as well, because in the book they've put a little note here: limit 1 bottle per member. So there is going to be a strict 1 bottle per member limit on this whiskey. This is called Witchcraft. Again, whether this is a Valentine's Day theme or not, I'm not entirely sure. Some people are brought together by witchcraft, I guess. With heavenly aroma, we found ourselves in an old-fashioned dunnage warehouse in Scotland, smelling a very rare old vintage Añada Amontillado sherry, celestial. On the palate, dry and full-bodied. One panelist called it massaging your tongue. With walnuts and toasted hazelnut husk and hints of butterscotch, water brought out fresh oranges and bergamot oil before raisins and shaved toasted almonds took center stage. To taste, like a rye witch cocktail using rye whiskey, Palo Cortado sherry, orange bitters, demerara sugar, and Italian strega, meaning witch, herbal liqueur. So, this is, again, going to be a very interestingly sherried whiskey. And again, we're going to see a little bit of an influence of American oak and sherry, because this is actually, we're all about themes this time. We had, the theme of the space side, this quadrilogy, and we're actually going to make that a quintilogy, I guess, right now, because this is also a space side whiskey. But is this a single cask? Well, that is a good question, and we will discover that very shortly. Or we'll basically discover that I don't know. This is Witchcraft, and it has the Global Gathering stamp on it. This was specifically bottled with the Global Gathering in mind for 2020, which of course was not really so much of a global gathering as a, hey, we wish you guys were here from the guys over in Scotland. This is cask 7.244, an OutTurn of 360, one of 360 bottles. Like smelling a rare vintage sherry in a dunnage warehouse in Scotland, celestial. 2 second fill bourbon barrels combined into a first fill PX butt. So, it's almost like the Holy Trinity, but it's a holy duality? you know, it's the 3 into the 1. It's the 2 into the 1 in this case. They got 2 ex-bourbon casks, dump them into a first fill Pedro Jimenez butt, which is awesome, and is something that I cannot wait to try, because I think that is exactly the right kind of experimental ideas that belong in the Scotch Scotch whiskey industry. The whiskey industry. Oh, that should be the Windy Awards, the Whiskey Industry Awards. That'd be great. This is bottled at 59.4% ABV, and it's actually 15 years old, so that's quite up there for a 15-year-old. It was distilled on, 15 years aged. Distilled on the 7th of September 2004. This is a Speyside again. It is a second fill bourbon barrel, initial casks, with a final cask of first fill XPX butt. So yeah, is this a single cask? Well, it all came from a single cask just before bottling, but that single cask came from 2 other casks. So I don't know. I don't know. That is my final answer. Is it delicious? I'm sure it is, but let's give it a try anyway, because, you know, in the name of science and all that. Yeah, Distillery 7. Lovely. Ooh, got some colour on it. Always a fun thing with sherry whiskies is getting that extra bit of colour, which usually actually comes from the European oak rather than the sherry itself, but very cool. Very, very cool. I think we've actually had entirely the new livery in the new releases this month. Yeah, just looking through, yep, entirely the new livery, apart from, of course, the blended malt, which look completely different. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, this is a little more sweeter and more delicate, I think, than the Big Swirl. Oh my. That's good. That has, again, they talk about Amontillado sherry in the write-up, that weird funk that you get on those sherries, that, you know, in the Amontillados, the floor. That this does have some of that funk. It's almost Springbank-esque in its funk. Yeah, there's a touch. We know this is a Speyside, but there's a touch of Campbellton going on in here. There is a bit of a link, though. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah. So, whereas in the Big Swirl, I was enjoying fistfuls of raisins, in this one I'm enjoying raisins that have been rehydrated with sherry. This is lovely. It's by no means a sherry bomb, though. It's not like the only flavour there. You can taste some more intricate, delicate flavour underneath there. There's kind of like a Angostura bitters kind of a thing going on there. It's a little bit orangey. It's like the orange Angostura bitters, actually. Never had a rye witch cocktail. I'm going to look up the ingredients and see if I can mix one up at home. Perhaps our store mixologist, Pat Dunlop, will be able to give me a hand with that. It's very good. All right, let's give it a touch of water. This is something I do despite advice given against it. I got some very good advice from Lawrence Graham a long time ago about, you know, when adding whiskey to water. He had a little device of if you would add water or ice to the thing that was previously in the barrel, then add it to your whiskey, and if you wouldn't, then don't. And his idea behind that was that ex-bourbon casks work really well with the addition of water, and ex-sherry casks not necessarily so. So, you know, we'll see if this, you know, it can be a little more hit and miss with sherry casks, whether the water is a good addition, a bad addition, or completely neutral. We'll see if it does anything this time. Yeah, I want to say no. I want to say it doesn't really do anything. It smells exactly the same. I wonder if there's any science behind that. It's an easy thing to remember, though. Certainly given that. Yeah. So one thing I don't think I mentioned as well is that we do know how long the finish was. It was 2 years in a first fill XPX bud as well. So it's 13 years for the initial initial maturation. Very cool. Yeah, I enjoy this. I definitely see why it's got a one per member limit on it, though. This is, yeah, I think this is going to go down quite well. So, what is distillery number 7? I can tell you right now that distillery number 7 is Longmorn, a favourite of mine, a favourite of quite a few people here in Victoria as well. We had some fantastic Longmorns in the Companions of the Quake recently, another independent whiskey club I belong to. Longmorn, interestingly, was also built in the 1800s in 1893, a few years before Benriach, the last whiskey we were talking about. And this one actually survived the 1899 crash. Isn't that amazing? Actually, tying back to the Benriach as well there, is after Benriach closed down, it actually was no longer a distillery, but its maltings still kept going. So it actually provided the malted barley for Longmorn, which was its sister distillery, kind of interestingly. During that period, a gentleman by the name of Masataka Takatsuru in 1920 actually worked at Longmorn for a period of time. He sort of interned there, I guess, for a little while he was learning the craft of whiskey. He also interned at Hazelburn. There's the Campbellton link I was getting to a little while ago. He actually enjoyed his time at Longmorn so much. I don't know if they gave them to him or whether he stole them, but he apparently managed to get his hands on the blueprint for the stills. And when he finally got his own distillery up and running in Japan, Yoichi Distillery, which was entirely his own, it wasn't anything to do with any of business partners, he actually used those blueprints and recreated Longmorn stills up in Yoichi, which is pretty cool. Yeah, a wonderful whiskey, very much worthy of the Global Gathering stamp. This can be yours. We have 11 bottles of this one as well. $209.48 available right now at strathliquor.com/SMWS, and we are putting a limit of 1 per member on this one. Oh, all right. The back row has been quite interesting so far, as in like the second set of 4. As usually when we get into the sherrier, the more sherried and the more peated style of whiskies, and we've done this. We've had a duo of sherries, and we're about to go into a duo of peat right now. So let's see where that leads us. Do we have another Valentine's Day-esque name? Let's find out. Whiskey number 7 tonight is, kind of, yeah. It's a Van Gogh reference, or Van Gogh if you don't like the Gogh. Tari, Tari Night, which is also a beautiful, beautiful song, of course, by Don McLean, I think that's right. Tari, Tari Night, absolutely beautiful painting, one of my favourites. And let us find out what the whiskey, Tari, Tari Night, is all about. Raw, earthy peat smoke to begin. Then kippers, followed by peppered game meat, salty bacon, smoky pub carpets. Oh god. I remember those. Apparently, I must be really old now in the eyes of young people, because I remember smoking in pubs, and I remember pubs having smoke-stained, beer-stained carpets. Yeah, alright, smoky pub carpets, petrol, glacier mints, and hot horseradish, smoked salmon soaked in bitumen, roof sealant, and hot tar buckets, potent yet wonderfully mature for its age. Water brought us more mineral aspects and a bigger saline note. Fresh, sharp notes of lemon juice, sweet barley, cough medicines, and potent English mustard. English mustard, the best mustard. This weird yellow shit you put on your hot dogs over here is absolute trash. Get yourself a little bottle of Coleman's. It'll last you 3 times as long as those big jars, I promise you, because it's potent, it's good stuff. The palate opened with a big, hearty suttiness, smoked earth, burlap, hot kiln air, more kippers, dense medical notes, and wood ash. Some miso broth, iodine, and natural tar as well. With reduction, there came squid ink, dried herbal cough medicines, boot polish, camphor, and the oily heft of a hot smoked salmon sandwich. Nice. So, despite many of those notes automatically making people think that has got to be an Islay, or at least maybe either Campbellton or an Islands. No, this is actually a Highland whiskey, which is kind of cool. And this is a Highland whiskey that I love the distillery. We'll get into the distillery a little later. But Tari Tari Night is 122.31. Lovely. All right. Youthful yet superbly mature and brimming with raw peaty power, smoked meat, seawater, wood smoke, tar, and oily smoked fish notes galore. One of 235 bottles coming out of a second Phillips bourbon barrel. Yeah, this is 122.31. It was distilled on the 22nd of April, 2014. This is only 5 years aged. As such, it's quite a high ABV, 62.1. This is 5 years aged. Oh, super cool. And this is not lightly peated. This is a peated whiskey in the eyes of the SMWS. And yeah, I've been looking forward to this one. I love these guys. They've provided some of my most memorable whiskies in the last couple of years from the SMWS, and I'm sure this is going to be one of them. That was a hell of a cork pop. I don't know what a pork cock is, but it's nowhere near as good as a cork pop. All right. Actually, a little darker than I was expecting for a 5-year-old. Oh, yes. I don't know how they do this. But yeah, this is trawlers and fish nets. This is smoked crab meat just being scraped out of the shell. Actually, it reminds me of an evening I spent in, what's the name of that town? The capital of PEI, Charlottetown, PEI, where it was far too cold to be sitting outside, but we decided to do so anyway, because the restaurant had heaters and blankets. So we were like all cuddled up outside. It must have been September, October or something. Actually, no, it was spring. Sorry, my apologies. I think it was like April. And unlike Victoria, April in Charlottetown is quite cold still. So yeah, we were huddled up with blankets and had this big heater, and we had this sort of seafood platter. And I remember having crab, and there was I was having a smoky cocktail with it as well, and the sharp biting air. Good memories. I miss traveling. Yeah. Very coastal. Very, very coastal. Tar buckets and salmon. Salmon glazed with tar. Again, I'm not a doctor. Don't glaze your salmon with tar. I'm also not a chef. But I do get that English mustard bite. There is it's almost maybe even wasabi. It's got this nice mustardy vegetal bite to it. Not like it's spicy, but not in a chili way. So what is this whiskey? This is a whiskey which I apparently mispronounced for a long time, or I'm still mispronouncing, and the person who taught me how to say it is also mispronouncing it. So if you work for the distillery, please, or you live nearby or something, please let me know if I'm saying this wrong. I always thought it was Crofton Jaya. Apparently, according to Tommy Boyd from AD Rattray, it's Crofton Gee, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah. This is the heavily peated malt from Loch Lomond Distillery, one of my favourites. Actually, the more and more I think about it, Loch Lomond is very, very high up in my list of distilleries. In fact, the Loch Lomond group that also owns Glen Scotia, they're so off the wall. Loch Lomond and Glen Scotia are two of the wackiest whiskies, and they happen to just own both of them. It's pretty cool. So Loch Lomond is one of the most southern of the Highland distilleries. It's in the town of Alexandria on the coast of Loch Lomond, which makes this technically a coastal whiskey if you count a loch or a lake, I guess, as a body of water, which is a body of water. But it certainly shouldn't be as coastal as this would suggest if you think that terroir has a huge impact on whiskey. This is something that will showcase how you can make something that feels like it was made on the seaside of an island quite far inland and still get that same effect. The terroir is there, but much less so in where it's from and more the techniques that are used to create it. Town of Alexandria. Which I always remember because Alexandria is also the setting of one of my favourite TV shows, The Walking Dead. I assume a very, very different place in reality, though. Never been to Alexandria, Scotland, but I'm assuming there's not, zombies. As also an easy thing to remember about Loch Lomond is that it started in 1966, and as an Englishman, that's a very special year because that's the last and only time England has ever won the Soccer World Cup or the Football World Cup. Yeah, love this place. So yeah, code 122, one of several codes that the Loch Lomond distillery has, because the way that the SMWS actually codes their whiskies is not necessarily based on distillery, but also based on the techniques used, the methods for making the whiskey, which is why some distilleries, like Lechaig and Tobermory, for example, Tobermory releases their peated whiskey under the name Lechaig normally, but in the SMWS they actually have the same code, because the only difference is actually in the ingredients. There's no difference in technique, apparently, between Lechaig and Tobermory. With Loch Lomond, they don't just change the ingredients. It's not just, today we'll have malted barley, today we'll have malted peated barley. No, they actually completely change up the entire system of how long it's fermented, how long it's distilled, the temperature it's distilled at. They've got apparently over a dozen different ways of making whiskey. They even make grain whiskey. Technically, they also have a blend, which is malt whiskey and grain whiskey made at the same distillery, which technically makes it a single blend, interestingly enough. A single blended whiskey. Strange times. But yes. This beautiful Crofton G can be yours for $140.70. Available right now at strathliquor.com/SMWS. $140 and 70 cents. Lovely. Yeah. If you want a nice punch of peat and you want to try something a little bit different, a little interesting, this is a good takeaway. All right. We have made it to the final whiskey of today's OutTurn, and that whiskey is called, I guess this is Valentine's-y, I guess, in a sense, Keeping the Fire Stoked. I guess that's part of the purpose of Valentine's Day, isn't it? It's, you go out and you have a nice date night with maybe a partner that you've been with for a couple of decades, and you're keeping that fire stoked. It's beautiful. All right. A variety of images came to mind nosing this sample neat. Smoked salted almonds, peat smoked lobster tails, and a steaming hot mug of Lapsang Souchong tea, as well as the exhaust fumes of a tugboat. On the palate, neat, a sweet peat smoke caramel explosion like taking the first sip of a mojito cocktail, served with caramelized sugar-crusted key limes grilled over a screaming hot peat fire. Diluted, we were transported into a kiln, where barley was being dried over a blasting fire, just being stoked with peat slaps before we sat down to eat honey and nut cluster muesli. And honey and nut cluster muesli reminds me of my all-time favorite breakfast cereal, Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes. And if anyone has had Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes, you're probably as confused as I am right now as the fact that they don't exist in Canada. Where the hell are my Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes? Honestly, they are the best cereal in existence, and it's disturbing that they're not available here. We should start a campaign to try and bring them in. Anyway, Keeping the Fire Stoked. This is cask number 0.2 there. This is Society cask number 53.327. I got ahead of myself there. OutTurn, this is one of 295. This is from a hogshead, not just a barrel. It's where they, break a bunch of barrels down and reform them into a bigger cask. The notes here: smoked salted almonds, peat smoked lobster tails, and exhaust fumes of a tugboat, followed by a mojito served with caramelized peat smoked limes. This was aged for 10 years. This is an Islay. It was distilled on the 20th of February 2009 from, as I said, a refill ex-bourbon hogshead. This is 58.9% ABV. We've had an amazing run of 53s recently in the SMWS. Let's see if this one keeps the trend going. Oh, need to take the foil off before I try and take the cork out. There we go. Sounds like someone's riding a mini bike down the alleyway. Not advisable. Oh yeah, that smells like a 53. All right, so The best way for me to describe what a 53 is like is by basically telling you what a 53 is. This is a Kalila, which is a fabulous distillery and something we've been seeing some incredible releases from in the SMWS recently. If you know Kalila well, you already know this whiskey. This is, on the nose at least, textbook Kalila. One of the most consistent distilleries in existence. Don't know how they do it. Yeah, just clean, slightly lemony, slightly bacony Islay malt. Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's like you know those firefighters that are dropped out of a plane into a burning forest. Imagine being one of those firefighters, but you also had a sore throat, so you had a lemon lozenge in as you were descending into the smoke. Oh, and you have just been chewing on some bacon candy. I don't know. I don't know how the bacon fits into this equation. Maybe the forest was full of wild boar. Oh, that's quite sad, but would smell quite amazing. Damn, that's good. So, a little bit of interesting note about Kalila. It's nestled in a bay by Port Haskeg, and Kalila literally means the sound of Islay. It is by far and away the biggest distillery in Islay in terms of output. So whiskey output is generally measured in litres of pure alcohol produced per year. So, you take this, it's like 58.9, and you times it by whatever the amount is to make that 100%, and that's how, however many litres of 100% alcohol are made from it is the output. So 6.5 million litres a year of pure alcohol is made at Kalila in pure alcohol terms. So that's probably then, in terms of cask strength bottles, we're talking around probably 10 million bottles of cask strength whiskey. In terms of 40% stuff, we're probably talking, with a combination of cask strength and regular additions, knowing that most of it is probably ended up going to blending houses as well. Kalila probably puts out a good 15 million bottles of whiskey a year, which is just incredible. To put that into perspective, the next biggest Islay distillery, to probably no one's surprise, is Laphroaig. They're the best-selling Islay single malt in the world. 3.3 million litres of Laphroaig, which means that Kalila is actually bigger than Laphroaig and Lagavulin combined. That's how big Kalila is. It's probably one of the secrets of their consistency is they just make so damn much of it. They've got it down pat now. Beautiful. Let's see. I often find with Kalila, if you add water, it brings out the citrus note a little more. Let's see. I wouldn't say it brings it out, but it's certainly evolved it. The official notes talk about lime grilled over a lime that's been grilled over a screaming hot peat fire. And whereas I was definitely more leaning towards lemon beforehand, I can definitely see lime now with water added. And mint as well. The mojito cocktail is coming to play. That's just a very, very good Kalila. Lovely. So if you like that Kalila, or if you like the idea of that Kalila, you can pick it up right now. There are 11 bottles available at strathliquor.com/SMWS for $186.87. $186.87 available right this second. And on that note, I want to thank you all for joining me for this high-definition episode of Drinking Out Loud. This has been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to what's coming next for the show. We're going to be teaming up with the Victoria Whiskey Festival and to have some special guests and release some very, very interesting whiskies. Until then, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to leave you with another track from I believe the debut solo album. I think this is her first solo album, but local artist Phaedra Kemp. Click on the link in the show details to find out how you can get a copy of this album yourself. I'm going to leave you with another track from Phaedra Kemp's new album, and leave the details of all 7 new releases plus the 1 repeat on the screen. And I will see you next time. Slan Shabar.
It's so bloody high, and my heart is on the rise.